Okay, so when we're looking at ratios, we're going to look at a few different questions here. So, question 9 on the first exercise. It's 180 kilometres between Sanding and Kinister. A bird flies 143 kilometres from Sanding heading for Kinister. And we have to find, first of all, the distance travelled in ratio with the distance to go. So, the distance travelled, the bird has flown 143 kilometres. So that's our distance travelled. So we've got 143, and then we've got the colon, and then the distance to go. Well, the whole journey is 180 kilometres, and we've already done 143, so a quick little sum. 180, take away 143, will give us our answer of how far is still to go, which is 37. So the distance to go is 37. So the ratio of distance travelled to distance to go is 143 to 37. The ratio of distance travelled to total distance, well, the distance travelled is 143, and we want that in ratio with the total distance. The total distance of our journey is 180 kilometres, so that would be the ratio there. Now, on exercise 2, there's quite a lot in question 3, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I've picked about 12 here that will hopefully make a difference. So this first ratio is 4 to 6, and we've been asked to simplify that. Now, when we're simplifying it, it's like if we were simplifying the fraction 4 over 6. You're trying to think what times table are 4 and 6 both in. So I spot that 4 and 6 are both in the 2 times table. So I'm going to divide both sides of this ratio by 2. So I'm dividing that side by 2, and I'm dividing this side by 2. If I divide 4 by 2, I get 2. And if I divide 6 by 2, I get 3. And then just like when we do fractions, if we had got the answer 2/3, we would check is that as far as it goes. So with our ratio, is there a number that's in the 2 that goes into 2 and goes into 3? No, there's not. It would just be the 1 times table, and that's not going to help us. So our final answer is 2 to 3. Let's look at the next one in B. We've got 6 to 20. Now again, they're both even numbers, so they're both definitely in the 2 times table. So we're going to divide both sides by 2. So if I do 6 divided by 2, if I half 6, I get 3. And if I half 20, I'm going to get 10. So I get the answer 3 to 10. And then think about those two numbers. Are 3 and 10 both in the same times table? No, they're not. So that's where we finish for that one. The next one, 7 and 28. So the first one we've been thinking about is always the 2 times table. But 2 doesn't go into 7. 7's an odd number. So we need to think about a different times table. Now 7 and 28 are both actually in the 7 times table. So we're going to divide them both by 7. Okay. And how many 7's go into 7? Well, 1 7 goes into 7. So 7 divided by 7 is 1. And how many 7's go into 28? The answer is going to be 4. And as soon as you've got a 1 here, you know you're fully simplified. It's not going to get easier than that. Next one, 15 and 12. So the ratio is 15 to 12. This is now 3G, so I've missed out a couple that you can have a go at. 15 and 12, not both in the 2 times table, because 15 obviously is an odd number. 15's in the 5 times table, but 12 isn't. But they're both in the 3 times table, so we're going to divide them both by 3. Okay. So, 15 divided by 3, 3 what's are 15? 3 5s. 12 divided by 3 is 4, because 3 4s are 12. Double check, 5 and 4, not in any of the same times tables, so we can move on. Now, 48 and 10, both even, so both definitely divide by 2, but they're quite big numbers. Maybe would 4 go into them both? No, 4 doesn't go into 10. 6 goes into 48, but it doesn't go into 10. Let's just stick with 2. Even if it's not the biggest number that goes into them both, it will help us. So how many 2's go into 10 is probably the easier one to do. 2 5s are 10. Now, 2 into 48. Easier way to think about that, what's half of 48? Half of 48 is 24. Okay, 5 times table, 5. But for 24 we would have the 3 times table or the 8 times table, the 6 times table, but that is as simple as that one gets. There's not a times table that 5 and 24 are both in, so that's as far as we go. Now the next one, 36 and 9. I know that they're both definitely in the 3 times table, so we can divide them both by 3. Okay, how many 3's go into 36? Well, 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 6 twice, so 12 3's are 36, and 3 goes into 9 3 times, so we get the ratio 12 to 3. But wait a minute, 3 and 12 are both in the same times table. 3 and 12 are both in the 3 times table again, so we can do another step. So we can divide by 3 again. 3 goes into 12 4 times, and 3 goes into 3 once. So the final answer, the final ratio, would actually be 4 to 1. Now, we could have done that one quicker if we had spotted that 36 and 9 are both in the 9 times table. So we could have divided by 9 straight away. Okay, and then 36 divided by 9 is 4, and 9 divided by 9 is 1, so we would get the same answer, and we've done it in one quicker step. But as I always say to you, it doesn't matter how many steps it takes you, as long as you get to the right answer. So 4 to 1 is absolutely fine. Jumping down to 3M, so we've got another 6 to go on this. 180 to 150, now they're both quite big numbers. I can see they both end in a 0, so I'm going to divide them both by 10 first of all. So I'm not going to worry about finding the highest factor, the biggest number that goes into them both. I'm going to make my numbers a bit more manageable, because if I divide them both by 10, I'm left with 18 to 15. And I think about my times tables, and I think 18 and 15, they're both in the 3 times table. So now I'm going to divide them both by 3. So 18 divided by 3 is 6. And 15 divided by 3 is 5. So my final answer would be 6 to 5, because now I'm left with 2 numbers that don't appear in the same times table together. 55 and 25 next. Again, they're both going to divide by 5. Look at them. They both end in a 5, so they're both in the 5 times table. How many 5's go into 55? 5 times what is 55? 5 times 11. How many 5's go into 25? The answer would be 5. So we get 25 divided by 5 is 5. Next, 72 and 9. Now, 9 3 times table or the 9 times table. 72, it's in the 9 times table as well. So we're going to divide both sides by 9. 72 divided by 9 is 8, and 9 divided by 9 is 1. So we get the ratio 8 to 1. And remember, as soon as you've got a 1, you know it's definitely simplified as far as it can be. Last 3 are definitely a wee bit trickier. The numbers are a little bit bigger. We might need more than one step here. In S, 41 and 82. This is a tricky one. 82 is even, so we could have divided it by 2, but 41 isn't, so we can't. As soon as you can't divide it by 2 or 5, okay, the next number I would always think about is 3. Now, we might need to do little sums here, and that's okay. 41 divided by 3. Let's do that and see if it works out nicely. So 3 goes into 4 once, with 1 left over, and 3 goes into 11. Well, that's not going to work out nicely, is it? So they're not in the 3 times table either. That's not going to work. Okay. So we need to think about something else. What other times table are they in? And actually, the more that I look at these numbers, I think, well, wait a minute. How many 41s make 82? If I actually divide this by 41, and I would never expect you to know your 41 times table, but I know that I've got 41, and then the next number would be 82, because double 41 is 82. So that one is 1 to 2, and that's quite a tricky question, so don't worry too much if you weren't sure about that. Very quickly, the last 2. Well, spot the 36 and the 36. Actually, if we divide them by 36, we're left with 10 to 1, but you might have had to do that in more steps. You could divide by 2 first. And then here, 12 and 6,000. Let's divide by 2. We get 6 and 3,000. Let's divide by 2 again. We get 3, half of 3,000, 1,500. Now, 3 and 15 both divide by 3, so that would give me 1 and 5, but it was 1,500, so 1 to 500.